And I find this slogan stated mostly when it comes to youth engagements or when it comes to other engagements that anything for us without us is, please respond, anything for us without us is against us, right? We use this slogan to champion other causes, including inclusion of youth, which is based on the United Nations Security Council Resolution 2250, that unanimously acknowledges that different stakeholders have got a role to play. So the contradiction then comes in when we now say African member states should not be represented equally in the same space, but we're making the same case for other issues on the international agenda. So I think a case in point there is, if you do something for me, even with the purest of intentions, without including me, then I may think that you do it against me. And the fact is, majority of the conflicts that are resolved or where peacekeeping missions have been sent, including MINUSCO, MINUSMA, these are actually happening on the African continent. So it makes a case for us to say Africa should be represented in decision-making and international peace building. The second point I want to make related to that is our imagination of the Peace and Security Council has been very much based on how do we challenge the veto power, who gets to sit who gets to take the permanent seat on the African continent, and Africa should have a common position. But we also need to rethink, especially in light of developing issues on the international agenda, perhaps a United Nations Security Council that actually doesn't have veto power. If that is the main reason of contention, and that could be very much in line with anticipatory governance, might not be implementable in the near future, but I think for majority of people that are in this room who are actually young people, that's a direction we perhaps could be, a trajectory we should be considering and also thinking in line with. The final point, and I have about 2 minutes left, is the issue around coherence and partnership. Majority of the conflicts we actually see on the global agenda now do not respect our borders. The European Union, even the US, is grappling with migration crisis, and this has become a cause for majority of some of the radical right groups to actually lobby for very radical policy making. So if we're going to speak about partnership and actually resolving some of the trans-border crimes and trans-border challenges that we're seeing, then we also need to be discussing partnership when it comes to determining how peace and security is architected on the global agenda. Those are my remarks. Thank you. I'll respond to the last question, which was directed to me, and it says, what is the possibility of Africa's success in the UNSC anyway? And I think that's a relevant one, given that the Ezulwini Consensus was signed in or adopted in 2005. We're now in 2025, which means it's 2 decades of pushing for Africa's permanency in the Security Council. Even though it has challenges, does this mean we completely negate and say, because there hasn't been progress in 2 decades, then we stop fighting for it? I don't think that's the best way forward. The African continent bears the brunt of the majority of some of the either geopolitical wars that we're facing, some of the civil wars that we're facing, and being within the UNSC really is important and something that is worth pursuing. And this idea that because Africa doesn't have nuclear capacity, then maybe we shouldn't have a seat in the Security Council. I think it's a very concerning thinking pattern. We do not need to weaponize to be able to promote peace and security. It's actually the two actually in contrast in and of themselves. This idea that we need to build nuclear power, and because the West has done this and this and this, then Africa should follow in the same trajectory. And the reason that concerns me is if you look at majority of the threats that we're actually facing, climate change inclusive, Africa has got a very limited adaptive capacity. That's the first one. But the second one is actually our social assistance structure, right? So at the end of all these political wars, and the persons that suffer is actually the citizen after all the political issues that we've discussed. So I definitely think that there could be a different way to go about. So where do we start from if we're going to reform the UN Security Council? I think a very primal deciding factor when it comes to global governance is actually political will. there has to be political will to actually want to reform the Security Council to begin with. And that aligns with what Ambassador said around the veto power. Why is that political will important? I think two reasons from my end. The first one is politics decides or determines how a lot of things are done. And if it was a case of coming to African member states and saying, we have been granted, or Africa has been granted a permanent seat, but the challenge now is deciding who gets onto UNSC rather. That's a different conversation altogether. But the premise on which the debate, the discussion around permanency in the UN Security Council has been framed, a large part of it is around the lack of a common position in terms of deciding or determining which African member states will get into the UNSC. And I find that very undermining to a certain extent, given that the African Union actually has an African Union Peace and Security Council that functions. Granted, it's got its challenges, including perhaps financing, which is one of the bigger issues, especially in some of the transition missions that we're having, moving from UN peacekeeping missions to AU-led peacekeeping missions. But I think the very fact that the African Union has got a structure where peace and security issues are decided, guided by the African peace and security architecture, I think that's something positive. That's the first one. Another silver lining is actually that there is a willingness at the African Union or at the African level to get into conflicts or respond to conflicts in collaboration. And I think that decision at the AU level, even with IGAD and trying to respond to some of the conflicts we've had in East Africa, granted they've had their challenges, but I think that level of wanting to work together is actually very premised on some of the values and principles we have as African states that we want to believe.